G'day world, my name's Chris Hogan, I'm from BeachCity and you're live with us on facebook.com/BeachCity Life, and we have from Öland, Sweden, sorry, it's just Sweden.
Do that again.
No, we're live, man. We can't do that again.
I know.
We're live with Nicklas Bergmann. And we're just checking that we're actually live. So we're just going to confirm that with our tech people. Just waiting. Sometimes there is a delay, so we will wait for that. Yes, I can confirm we're actually live. So, wait, I can confirm that, but do we have audio? Last time we did this, we had a few challenges.
I hear you loud and clear.
Very good. Thanks so much for joining us, Nicklas, for round two of Facebook Live interview on today. It's on the future of work. So if you out there in the world haven't seen, we did a previous interview a week ago with Nicklas, and Nicklas is in his summer home in the beautiful Öland, Sweden. Nicklas, how you going?
All good, all good. Swedish summer, 16 degrees, cloudy, a bit windy. Typical Swedish summer, but I mean it's still early morning. But we're a bit weather challenged up north here.
Beautiful, mate. So what's taking up your time right now? Are you working or are you full-time holiday?
No, I'm trying. I got a very good situation with the family where they usually sleep in the mornings. I enjoy getting up early and not to sound like very elitistic or anything, but I usually wake up early and do some work. And then now in the summer when it's a bit slower, I try to get some thinking done. It's not pretentious, but I'm trying hard to do that and thinking about next steps and next writing, next book, next mega trend or next venture, whatever it is. It's a good environment to do that, actually.
Very good. And to give some context, this is the book that Nicklas has already written. You can see I've got my little notes in there. I'm not that far through it, but so far so good, Nicklas. So well done.
It's just funny, as a struggling writer, all writers are struggling in a sense. I very much appreciate when I see someone with a book with like small notes in it, or having used a highlighter, or actually been going through the book and not just putting it on their tables, on their desks.
Yeah, I think this is a super important point that you've just made, and well, I think given the topic, I need to be able to relay the content in here in this book to my counterparts or people that I meet. And there's some certain facts in here that you've given, because you've given quite a great summary of the history of technologies. And while many of us wouldn't, I guess, be caught up in that history, mm-hmm. it's still an important fact to, and you've highlighted in the book. It's super important to know the history of where we've been. So that we can start to, somewhat predict, apply our best predictions to the future.
Yes, of course. And I just remember from going to college that when I look back to my time in college, I realized that some of the best classes I went to were the ones where history of economics, history in general, history of economics, history of science, history of ideas. I found that really interesting and useful when I try to look forward now. And it's also the fact that, we think everything is unique these days. I think, we talked about the new economy 15 years ago, and now it's a new situation again. And we realize when you look at the history, yes, we have some very interesting things happening right now, but when people were introduced to the steam engine or electricity or the combustion engine for that sense, we reacted in roughly the same way. We started experimenting with these things, didn't really know what to use them for. And once we found out some interesting applications, things expanded. We started seeing good use cases, and we started seeing ways of improving what we were doing with another technology and using electricity instead, whatever it is. And then as the last third stage in this, we see a total transformation of society. As we saw with the cars, when society was built up around the cars. We got drive-in cinemas, we got suburbs or shopping malls, things that could never exist without the car being more or less everywhere, at least in the Western world. So we see that with computers, we see it with smartphones, we see it with social media, all new technologies that get introduced. We experiment with them, and then they catch on and start transforming the way we actually live and work.
Beautiful, which is a perfect segue to our topic for today on the future of work. And there's many different ways we can look at the future of work. And you've said that during some of the times when you've been doing keynotes, you've noticed the response from people in the audience when delivering your keynotes. And we discussed just a little bit prior to going live that I believe there's three types of people in the world at the moment around the future of work and what's happening. And those are the scared, those that are in denial, and those that are actually doing something or thinking about doing something. And I believe that last category is very small. So can you tell us about the experience that you've had on stage when delivering, the future of tech and the tech storm that we're going through, and what's
happening? I mean, it's when you speak about technology, as I do the occasional keynote on technology and how technology changes business and society and the way we live and work. Of course, it's a challenge because it's about change, and in general, we don't like change. We enjoy having things as it always been. So I always get, depending on what kind of audience it is, I get, I don't know, between a tenth and a third of the audience, they just sit in the back, cross their arms, and just shake their heads, and they don't really listen to the message I'm trying to give, and that's frustrating, of course, in some sense. But at least they're awake, and that's always comforting. Usually people are awake, but I've actually had keynote. I did a keynote on a Saturday morning at an IT company once, where they had a party the night before, with about 100 people in the audience, and I think 4 or 5 were asleep the whole time. So that's a challenge when you're not an actor on stage like that. But anyway, it's challenging because in one way you have to, I mean, for me, living in this world, you're interested in technology. Many people are. We're interested in the future and change and trying to do things. But you have to, and that doesn't only have to do with technology. It has to do with what we see in society today, in the political world, that you have people with all these fears. And it doesn't matter if I agree with them or not. I just have to accept the fact that they fear something, that they're afraid of a situation or a potential situation, and I have to relate to that. I really have to relate to that to understand their perspective and to deliver my message in a different way, or try to help them get acquainted and understand and get to accept the fact that we're moving in a specific certain direction. That said, for society, yes. For large corporations, yes, you need to adjust and get these people on board. For some small companies that I've been involved with, as an entrepreneur and investor, you don't have the luxury sometimes to get everyone on board. You don't have the time or the luxury or the money or the resources to do that. And maybe then you have to part ways and let them do something else, and you continue with the people that are on board, actually.
We actually had a question last night from Jonathan Malder from Brisbane, and his question was, what story do you recommend, Nicklas, that can get people reacting positively to changes automation is bringing rather than negatively?
Oh, that's well, I hate myself for saying that, but that's a good question, because that's the generic thing you say every time someone is asking a question. But I remember a quote, or I don't remember the exact quote, but there's an essay that I sometimes use, and it's from 1857 in a journal, where the writer writes something that, okay, we're something around that, the fact that we're living in a world that's too fast and too big, and things are happening at a pace that we can't accept. We got all these new innovations, all this information overload, all this gossip, and all these new plays, and everything that is happening, and it's just too much for a human being to manage. Information overload, innovation overload, gossip overload, whatever you call it. But what's interesting here is that was 160 years ago, where people were complaining about a telegraphic line between New York and Paris. Why would I want to know what people are doing in that town immediately when it happens? I have enough to take care of here in my own city. So on different levels, we've always felt a bit left behind, I think. We've always felt that technology is overwhelming us. We got too much information to handle, to take care of. So I think that's important and interesting as a perspective, that we don't for a second think that we could get it all in, that we could see all the information, process all the information that is happening, accept the fact that no matter how much you try, you will never get the full picture. But I think that even it's better with snippets of information, and part of that, getting hold of part of that information flow is better than nothing. Not really answering the guy's question, but still, it's.
No, you absolutely did answer the question, and he was after a story, and you gave it. So,
yeah.
Once again,
I think it's a question of perspective. Realizing that yes, we live in very interesting, unique times, but humanity has been living in very interesting, unique times in the past as well.
Yeah. So I'd like to digress and move into industries. And what industries do you feel might be biggest disrupted by the likes of automation or just the future of tech? And I'll frame this by, I thought that it would be education and retail. What do you think, Nicklas?
I think you're right. As two industries that are facing some really, really big challenges going forward. Another couple of examples are, of course, financial services, for example, where it's also seen many banks have had very traditional ways of dealing with innovation and not actually doing that much innovation themselves. Also, because the fact that they are so regulated. So that's a challenge, of course. But I also think we see it. I mean, one place it's going to hurt a lot is in professional services, where we've had, in consulting, accounting, auditing, legal services, law firms, for example, where you have a lot of tech going on in machine learning, emerging artificial intelligence, for example, where you can automate many of these tasks. And at the same time, you have a structure with a partner structure, for example. You have a legal structure in the background, and which complicates change in that sense. And you also have some very high-paid, privileged people in those companies that actually will, if they're interested in staying at the forefront, continuing growing their business, they will have to take a serious look at their cost structure, their payment structure, their dividends to the partners, whatever it is, and actually start putting money back into the corporations to do some serious innovation work and to build processes, to build systems, to build their machine learning and AI capabilities, for example, to be able to provide for the customers new ways of for example, doing legal services. I think that's, and it's going to hurt because there's a lot of money for the partners, for example, in a law firm, that will have to go back into the organizations to develop these systems. Money that the senior partners, I think, more would have liked to keep for themselves instead. So there are some challenges, definitely. And then, of course, maybe we can take the insurance industry, the car industry. There will be no truck drivers in the future. But I mean, that's also you can just pick and choose, actually.
So you just said,
an interesting other question could be what industries are not affected. But we'll take that for the next time.
Oh, okay. Good teaser from Nicklas. So you just said in the future there will be driverless vehicles, driverless trucks, so therefore less actual jobs for truck drivers. How far away is the future? Are we already in the future? Because I hear a lot of people say it'll be in the future, and they think that that's 20 years off.
I mean, it depends. And I've seen that involved in companies where journalists ask you, okay, how is it going? When will it happen? And they want a date and then you try to be a bit unspecific about that because you don't want to promise anything. And then you see the headlines and they more or less write that, okay, here is a company that will change the world next week. And then they come back after 6 months saying, okay, nothing has happened. Well, I never said anything was going to happen this quick. And then when it happens, it's not news anymore. So that's a bit odd in that perspective. But I mean, we tend to, how do you say, overestimate the time it takes and underestimate the impact. And I think that's very clear, for example, with autonomous driving, that a bit more than 10 years ago, no one in the research or engineering community thought that more or less would ever happen. And now we're almost there. I mean, I got a car that's a couple of years old, and we got some autonomous driving features, lane assist, and these adaptive cruise controls, and that's not even the latest. When I get my new car here, maybe in a year or so, then we will have even more features in that. So things are happening quite fast there. What's interesting there is that when it comes to autonomous driving, there's been a lot of talk about that, but we haven't really seen the results of that engineering yet. It's coming. We know it will be there. We know it will change a lot. But when we talk about these things, we start seeing and discussing the effects, several layers, several degrees of separation away from the obvious ones. I mean, as I said, for example, the taxi drivers or the truck drivers or the driving schools, of course that would change. The car industry will change. The way we insure our drivers will change because we will not have any drivers in the future. But I saw an interesting analysis looking at industries that will gain the most from autonomous driving. And it's interesting because we see a situation where when we get used to the notion of a new technology, we start seeing the effects further away. And I think this was from an investment bank, and they said that one of the most interesting industries benefiting from autonomous driving in the future is the alcoholic beverage industries, because you don't need a designated driver. And I mean that's part a joke, but also very serious, because I mean you go with 4 people in a car, you increase the alcohol consumption in that car with 33% on a Saturday night. I mean, hopefully looking back, that one person in that car were actually sober and driving. Don't drink and drive. But and then you can say it's part a joke, part very serious, because the numbers behind that is that the consumption of alcoholic beverages, when we get full autonomous driving, according to this analysis, the consumption of alcoholic beverages would increase with somewhere between 150 and 250 billion US dollars annually, which means there's a whole lot of money in that. And I find that kind of interesting when you, as I said, you get used to the notion of a new technology and start seeing the consequences in the less obvious areas. I think that's kind of cool with technology.
Yeah. And not that we're advocating drinking here at BeachCity, because we're a lifestyle entrepreneurial brand, and in fact our CEO doesn't drink. So, Nicklas, want to get away from industries and maybe sideline topic in the future of work, and I guess with globalization and the power of internet and technology, we're seeing a displaced teams. So, disparate teams and locations. What do you think about that? Is that going to present a lot of problems? Is that coming? Is that here now? And if you want to give us a date of when the future arrives for that drop dead time.
I think it's interesting. I think we see a lot of change in the way people do the actual work. I mean, with the introduction of new technologies, the smartphones, for example, has been a tremendous source of new ways of actually doing your work. That's one thing. And then I think that we're we're a bit, as individuals, we're a bit slower in taking and using these technologies, meaning that, as I said earlier, we always feel a bit left behind when it comes to new innovations and new technologies and how we apply them. But of course, when it comes to the future of work, the future of remote work, when you get all this flexibility, to start with, you get overwhelmed. Your boss wants you to answer emails 24/7. And then you got instructions saying, well, we're not allowed to send emails after 5 p.m. or whatever it is. You got different rules for different countries and companies in that sense. So we get overwhelmed. We don't really know how to use it. And then we start seeing a structure in this. And when it comes to remote work, I think and distributed workforce, I think we're very early into this. We've seen some very interesting examples. I just got an email yesterday. I'm having a telephone conference next week with a company in the US. And I said, okay, we're going to use Skype or over the phone. And they said, no, we prefer over the phone, because they are 4 people in this telephone conference, and all 4 of them are in different places around the US, which I had no clue. I didn't know. I thought they were all in the same place. Not that it matters to me. It was just interesting that I haven't even thought about this, and when I realized it was not a problem. I find it kind of interesting that you can be distributed in that way. And that of course, that goes well with if you don't have the need of a physical office and a physical production. I mean, if you're more digital, then it's of course easier to do that. And then it also comes down to when you look for talent. You need a specific talent. If you only look here at Öland, then this specific talent, whatever it is, of course it's limited because you don't have that much people here. But if you instead say, okay, I need this talent, you can live wherever you want, stay wherever you want. Then of course you gotta, the pool to where to look is of course a lot bigger.
A lot bigger, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
but I'm not the expert on how to do this. There's this great. There was this great book that it's called Remote. I forgot the name of the author.
There's this great. No, oh, sorry, no.
That's another one. Yeah, no, but there's a book. A couple of guys wrote based on their experience from running a company with a lot of remote workers. So I can recommend that one.
Don't know the name.
It's called Remote, actually.
Yes.
I just don't remember the name of the guys that wrote it.
Cool. We'll look that one up. So, closing out question for you is future of work. I want to look at future of employment, hence what education might look like. Because I said that, well, my prediction is that, here we go. My prediction is that education is going to become free. People are already creating resistance to spending money on education, those hundreds of thousands of dollars in some countries, reducing it down to doing online courses for tens of thousands to now I'm seeing resistance to people paying for courses even in the tens of dollars per month. Mm-hmm. So what do you think the future of education is in regards to, I guess, what the internet has brought and what opportunities are there for people, or what are some of the things that they need to think about when solving this problem?
I mean, I think you're right that the willingness to pay for education is going down. I mean, we've seen that it's actually happening. Then, of course, we have also a situation, and that has to do with that we're still in the very early stages of online education. Although as a concept, it's been around for a long time, but now we start seeing things happening. But we still have a situation where people, they get into online education, but you have still, I think, the last statistics I saw is that you have very few people actually finishing their online educations. There's a lot of dropouts, a lot more dropouts online than if they go to a physical college, for example.
What do you think that is? Do you think that is because maybe they've got a gig, they've got a job halfway through doing that course? I mean, I guess we can speculate. We can speculate, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, of course, you got the whole social thing, the peer pressure, the interaction with your teachers, whatever. I mean, there's a whole lot of different reasons, and I think we will get used more and more to the online educational experience, meaning that it will be a lot easier for us. But still, I think we will. The things that are very good with the physical online physical educational experience work more to translate some of those positive things into an online experience as well. So, but of course, that will increase also when we, as individuals, get more used to an online educational curriculum or experience. But it's for the whole educational sector. Of course, that's a challenge. I'm not an expert on that, but I still think that it's really important when it comes to your own education, the reflection, the questioning, not taking anything for granted, not necessarily trusting anyone saying anything because they are a professor or an expert or whatever it is. Questioning, being curious, and forming your own opinion about what's being said at the lecture or on stage or on the web, for example. I think that's really important, and those things are going to be even more important in the future when we're going to automate things, we're going to work together side by side with machines, robots, and AIs, for example. Then these human traits, the social interaction, the empathy, the creativity, the risk taking, these things that are still either quite hard to copy in a computer, or where I think we also in the future will be willing to pay premium for human creativity over machine creativity, for example, or the fact that we get some social interaction or some empathy with the people around us. I think those things are really important in the future. Hard to teach, hard to learn, but that's there's just a couple of takeaways, I think.
So you said a funny thing to me earlier today when pre-interview, and I said that I was reading the book and that I was getting through it. I was finding the industry and currently interesting, and currently I've been skimming some of the parts, and that you said that you said a funny thing. Don't read the book, just listen to my Text Torn playlist.
Of course.
So, of course, for all of you out there who want to know what the Text Torn playlist is, you're going to have to buy the book to get the playlist.
Well, not actually, really, but please, this is a really good. No, I'll be quiet. Sorry.
Buy the book. So, but what do you hope that people actually get out of reading this book? What's your key desire?
Three things. I mean, the most important thing is, of course, the playlist. It's the only way that I can share my taste in music to someone else, because they usually just shut me down. But on a more serious note, there's two things. One is that we're facing the next technological paradigm where IT is maturing. We start seeing new technologies, new enabling technologies, and what we see is the merger of what's popularly known as the bang technologies. B, bits, as in IT. A is in atoms, nanotechnology, the physical world. N as in neurons, our understanding of the human brain. And G as in genes, genetics, biotechnology. And the merger, the cross-pollination between these technologies, these sciences, are going to be really, really interesting going forward. And what we see now in digitization, I mean, that's only the warm-up. That's only the training session before the actual transformation that's going to happen when we live very much longer, where we can teleport. I don't know what's going to happen, but the digitization that we're seeing now is just a warm-up. We're going to see some real amazing change going forward. So that's the one part that I would like to would be happy to discuss more with people that reads the book. The other side is the book is a lot of a handbook on how to relate to new technologies from a business perspective. And it's actually a three-way process that I've tried to put down how I relate to technologies in my ventures, in my entrepreneurial challenges. And of course, the first step is to analyze technologies, see what's out there. And as I said earlier, don't expect to get a full picture, but even snippets of information is a lot better than nothing. So analyze the technologies, what's out there, and see the timing perspective of it. When is it happening? The second part is to assess the business implications. How will this affect my industry, my company, my customer relations, all the different aspects of that. And then the third part is, how should I relate to this new reality? How should I adapt to a new uncertainty and all these different perspectives from an organizational perspective, from a leadership perspective. So analyze technologies, assess the business implications, and adapt to that new reality. So as a handbook, hopefully reading the book can make you think and reflect a bit differently about what technologies are out there and how they can affect you.
And is that the sustainability toolbox you're referring to, or the framework?
No, it's the general framework, which is an iterative process on seeing the technologies and then understanding the business implications of.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And also thanks to Scott Burke, who's in the room with me over there, who is actually gets an acknowledgement from Nicklas in the book. So our very own BeachCity Scott Burke, COO, gets a mention.
He paid for that.
Beautiful. You heard it here first.
Scott's been great. He's a great discussion partner when it comes to innovation and all these things. Thanks to Scott. But I must say that the playlist is actually on Spotify. So if you search for the Techstone playlist, you can listen into that. And
there was a carrot there, and you just
never mind. No one's gonna listen to it anyway. You got some weird stuff, some Swedish stuff, and some quite normal stuff in that one.
Classic. Well, thanks very much, Nicklas. I think we'll wrap it up. I've had a great time talking to you, and I'll just go to the world. Thank you so much, world, for listening to my interview today with Nicklas Bergmann, author of Surviving the Tech Storm. And needless to say, I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I'm sure once I get to the end, I might start using the framework.
Cool.
Thanks.
Good luck.
And see you later.
Take care, everyone. Have a good day.
Ending live broadcast.